This episode of the Downtown Rams podcast is brought to you by our proud sponsors, Thrive Fantasy, Built Bar, and ExpressVPN. Now, using promo code DTSN, our listeners can get $20 bonus cash on a deposit of at least $20 on Thrive Fantasy, 10% off their Built Bar protein bar order, and 35% off their ExpressVPN annual subscription. Once again, all you have to do is use the promo code DTSN and tell them the Downtown Rams podcast sent you. Now enjoy the show.
Aaron Donald creates the fumble. Goff goes crashing into the end zone.
It is intercepted by Jalen Ramsey.
Robert Wood, touchdown. Picked off by John Johnson. Touchdown, Tyler Higbee. Cooper Kupp plucks it out of the air.
Henderson with a good run and a first down. Still on his feet. Touchdown, Van Jefferson.
Everett in stride. Wow. Play for the Lombardi.
All right, guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co-host Jake Ellenbogen, and we are coming to you after a Rams loss to the San Francisco 49ers. The Rams lost to the 49ers yesterday, 20-23 in LA. The game, quite frankly, Jake, was a nightmare. It was really not okay on so many levels. And Jake and I talked about this literally, I think it was a few minutes into the game. We were like, we should not have predicted a blowout, because anytime you predict a blowout, the odds of it not going your way just skyrocket through the roof. And that's exactly what happened. The Rams did, and Jake, I'll let you give your thoughts on this after I make this statement. And this is something I said to you yesterday. I feel like the Rams, anytime there's a game that they should win, I don't want to say they go into the game cocky, but that's what it appears like. Every time that there's a game that I feel like we should win, the Rams go into the game playing like they've already thought that they've won. And then what happens is teams, in this case the 49ers, play really well, and then the Rams are kind of like, oh wait, we didn't prepare for this. And then the Rams just look really bad. And a lot of it, I think, is the play calling. I do think a majority of the blame to this game, for this game, is the play calling. But Jake, what were your overall thoughts on this 49ers versus Rams game?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at this game, this is a huge opportunity for the Rams to put themselves in position to set up taking over the NFC. And it's very simple. You beat the 49ers, you're 8-3. The Saints are 9-2, and they have a date with the Kansas City Chiefs on their schedule. So, this was an opportunity that was blown. Now I think that New Orleans, I think they wrapped up the number one seed, if you ask me. But just kind of looking at this game, a ton of missed opportunities. That was really just the way to describe this game. 17 points scored in about a 3-minute span, and the Rams somehow blew that lead. You had an amazing performance out of Aaron Donald at the end to really give the Rams an opportunity. You had a rookie running back come in. He hasn't really had a significant role all season. He came in, scampered for 61 yards, set up a touchdown of his own. And what it came down to is the Rams, they've paid this guy over $30 million. I know everybody's heard it, but Jared Goff is not playing up to par. And you can say, he outplayed Russell Wilson and Tom Brady the last two games. And you can say that the 49ers are kryptonite, but that can't happen. If you want to be in the Super Bowl, if that's your ultimate goal, the NFC West should not be your goal. It should be winning the NFC. We have an unprecedented playoff structure in the fact that two teams don't get a bye, only one in each conference. And to me, I think this is setting up so unfairly for everyone else. Like, the number 2 seed is still going to have to play. I think the number 1 seed only having to play 2 games, whereas everyone else has to play at least 3. To me, that's a no-brainer how much that helps. And so, you look at the fact that, now the Saints, they play a team without a quarterback against the Broncos. They weren't going to lose that game. They still have Kansas City on their schedule, but it's a pretty easy schedule the rest of the way. So, the Rams just missed opportunities left and right. I know there were some people saying that, the Rams weren't separating, they weren't getting open for Goff, I have to just entirely decline that idea, because I went back and I watched the game, and I can tell you that's not the case. I think Jared Goff is struggling at mental processing. He's been doing his whole career, and I think Sean McVay demands quite a lot at the line of scrimmage. I think mainly because Sean McVay, I think, wants to make it easier on Jared Goff. So he tells him all sorts of things and calls out all sorts of things before the head, the helmet mic comes off, cuts out. But I mean, it's just, I think it's too much. I really do. And Jared, to me, is somebody we've seen when he's at his best, it's everyone else is playing at their best, but he's not somebody that can elevate, this team. And he's lost more games than he's won, and he has, held back this team more than he's carried them. So I think we've reached a crossroads where fans are just sick and tired of the same thing. We shouldn't be talking about a team that very well could be the best NFC team in the league. We shouldn't be talking about them week 12, not having their offense together, their quarterback who they're paying over $30 million to, doesn't have it together. And the play calling is an issue as well. We shouldn't be talking about that, but we are.
Yeah, I think the thing with Jared Goff that I've said before in the past is he's the type of quarterback who other player, like, he needs players around him to make him look good. Like, he's not the type of quarterback that makes players around him better. The players around him make him better. And that is fine if the play calling is correct and everybody else is operating on full cylinders 100% of the time, which is very rare, no matter what team you're on. And so you start to see situations where you play teams that have figured out the play calling, and Jared Goff gets rattled. And that is exactly what's happening. He is not, and I feel bad because I like Jared Goff. I think he's a good person, and I think he's a good football player. But I think at the end of the day, he's not a guy that's going to take charge of an offense. He's not going to take charge of the team. He doesn't have that ability that we've seen yet. I mean, he might, we haven't seen many instances where he's able to, when the game is going rough and things are down, he's able to step up. Now, he did it against Tampa Bay, and we talked about that. He did do it then. But consistency is the factor here. Now, something I want to get into is the play calling. Because clearly when we're dealing with a quarterback situation such as we are with Goff, the play calling and the way that the offense is ran is going to really make or break the game. Because you then have to start making play calls and putting your quarterback in position to play well. If he's not going to do it himself, which is something that we haven't seen, then the coaching has really got to be there. So what are your thoughts on the play calling? Because I've got some issues with it. I specifically have an issue with time management, which has clearly been an issue for Jared Goff and clearly Sean McVay. I know I just asked you about the play calling in regards to offense, but I do want to bring up at the end of the game, I believe that there was a minute left on the clock, or there was 45 seconds, and we wasted 15 seconds before we called the timeout. It's like things like that where, like, 15 seconds at the end of the game to have the ball is a big deal. And it just seems like there's just always these weird little things that happen with the Rams play calling where we completely either are too late or we just waste time off of the clock.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of this game, it was so much, coming in, it was like the 49ers, they're 4-6. They have a lot to play for. If the Cardinals lose, which they did, they're 6-5. So they're, creeping up now 5-6 there. And not saying they'll make the playoffs, but this is a good team. This is a team, let's not forget they have 28 players on their IR and they continue to pull out games like this. Now, do the 49ers have Sean McVay's number? Absolutely. One thing that was really concerning to me, going back and watching this game reminded me of the Falcons playoff game in 2017. And you and I didn't know each other. It was a while ago, but I'm sure you remember that game. And that was Sean McVay's first ever playoff debut. And that offense that looked very good in 2017 couldn't do much against that Dan Quinn defense. And I think the elements there, with the faster linebackers in the middle, the sideline to sideline guys, you have Dre Greenlaw and you have Fred Warner. I think you saw that kind of with like the Falcons when they had Deion Jones. And the Rams had a hard time, coming back from that. I mean, the thing is, they stopped the run in that game, and then Brockers went down with injury, and they got gashed with Tevin Coleman and Devontae Freeman. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about their defense that shut down Jared Goff and Sean McVay's offense. And I think they used the same type of game plan, to be honest with you, as the Falcons did in that playoff game in 2017. And the reason that concerns me is Sean McVay's seen that before, or seen something like that before, and so he should have been able to really make something happen against this defense. I think Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator, is not only annoying, but he actually has really figured out the Rams' offense. And I think there's a lot of, like Vic Fangio, Bill Belichick, that's my biggest worry moving forward. How many of these defenses have figured out Sean McVay, and is Sean McVay going to actually be able to overcome that? Because I haven't seen him make adjustments against teams like that. This is the second time the Rams played the 49ers, and they didn't look any better. They arguably were worse at home in a area where they haven't lost all season. So I just think that's an issue. And I think another thing's an issue is when a quarterback struggles, we always want to say, well, he had no time to throw, or like if he takes a couple sacks, people, instantly clump those 2 sacks and just say the offensive line was terrible. The offensive line gave up 8 pressures. That's not great, right? Austin Corbett gave up 3 pressures. Everyone else gave up 1, except for David Edwards, who was phenomenal. I mean, he was a great, not only in pass pro, but he was great in the run game. This offensive line, to me, they were charged with 2 sacks, Joe Noteboom and Rob Havenstein. One of those sacks to me was on Jared Goff for holding the ball too long. And I feel like he did that a lot. And so I don't think this offensive line played all that bad. I do think we got to give credit where credit's due. The 49ers defense not only came in with a game plan, Jimmy Ward, their strong safety, was phenomenal. He was absolutely phenomenal in coverage. He was always around, to get that stop, that really important stop. He only allowed, on 8 targets, 3 receptions. Javon Kinlaw, the rookie, we've talked about him. He only played 21 snaps to Jimmy Ward 62 and Richard Sherman 62 and Jason Barrett 62. He only played 21 snaps, but in those 21 snaps, Pro Football Focus as well as Jimmy Ward gave him an elite grade in this one. He had a pick 6. He was disruptive. I definitely think he's somebody that's going to continue to get better, and the Rams are going to have to figure out a way to stop him. Richard Sherman came back, and I thought he played very well. Had the tough task of, covering Robert Woods. And, at the end of the day, I just think that this 49er team with Fred Warner and, Dre Greenlaw, I don't think that they're given enough credit for what they do. I really think they did a nice job of shutting down the run early on, which made McVay kind of panic and force Jared Goff into throwing a lot more than maybe the game plan entailed. But I think, after a while, the runs started popping, but those 2 guys changed the game just the way, Deion Jones changed the game in the Falcons playoff game in 2017.
Yeah. I just think what people fail to remember, or maybe they do remember it and they just don't want to talk about it, but this 49ers team is not at full strength. So the fact that we played this way against this 49ers team should be concerning to people. Because talent-wise, like if you're looking just player to player talent-wise, we are way more talented, but we just don't play like it. And again, we're trying to figure out why it is that we don't play like it. But I also want to bring up someone that played really well, and that was Deebo Samuel. And that was infuriating to me. It was infuriating to a lot of fans that kind of know the thing going on between him and Aaron Donald. Although I'll be honest, I don't think Aaron Donald really cares about someone like
No.
Deebo Samuel. I mean, why would he? But just the significance of it, and the fact that then after the game, Deebo Samuel was taunting Aaron and all that. But you know what? We have to be honest. He played well. He totally had his way with our defense, and that brings me into the defense because our defense really stepped up. Again, they seem to always be our saving grace, but our edge defense was not good. I don't know what happened. I don't know, because I feel like that doesn't like our edge defense is something that's like not obviously our strength, but it's not something that's typically that big of a weakness for us. So what do you think it was with our defense this game that allowed the 49ers to basically have their way with us on the edges of the field?
Well, the thing is, I don't actually think they played all that bad. And the reason for that is it's not the same as, a run outside the tackle. It's not the same as a toss play. I mean, they were running like a arena football like type of movement with Deebo Samuel and getting him the ball. And those bubble screens, you have to keep in mind, that's not really on the edge. When you get out in there, it's about clicking and closing as a defensive back. And if you can't get there in time, then you're just going to get run on. And so, the 49ers have really done a nice job, and mainly Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, at targeting wide receivers that may not be the DK Metcalfs of the world that you and I love. But guys like Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk that are filled out, they're more running backs in space, and they're all about yards after the catch. They knew they had Jimmy Garoppolo, who is fairly limited, and they knew they didn't have a Patrick Mahomes type of wide quarterback that can just throw it up there. They don't have Russell Wilson. So to basically combat that, they got a guy in Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, who did not play, in somebody that can generate broken tackles. And you saw that. I mean, Deebo Samuel is a problem. When he gets out in the open field, I mean, this team has shown they can't tackle him. I mean, I don't know what it is. I mean, you have to give credit where credit's due. Deebo Samuel generates missed tackles. He just does. That's his game. So, I think he was great, obviously. But that brings me to my next point here that I wanted to bring up. And Deebo Samuel on 13 targets had 11 catches for 133 yards. So he averaged 12.1 yards per catch. So basically every catch he had was going for at least a first down. Those yards, though, he had 136 yards after the catch. So, I mean, that tells you something there. They're not going deep. They weren't testing the secondary. They were sticking with the fact that this defensive back group couldn't click and close, and he was taking advantage of them. His longest of the day was 33 yards, but he had a 24-yard chunk and a 26-yard chunk, 4 first downs, and he had 1 drop. Now, in this scenario with Deebo Samuel, since he was the only one to really do anything in, the receiver group, John Johnson covered him on 1 target. Troy Reeder covered him on 4 targets. Leonard Floyd covered him twice. Darius Williams covered him twice. Justin Hollins once, and Jordan Fuller on 3 targets. Jordan Fuller gave up 59 yards, which was the most of anybody. What name did I not mention? Jalen Ramsey. So this is your best corner, and this is the best offensive piece they have. I was a little surprised, and I'm not trying to throw shade at Brandon Staley, who in my opinion is carrying this team this year with his defense. But I was a little surprised to see that, Jalen Ramsey wasn't on Deebo Samuel. I was just, I was surprised by that because, I mean, Jalen Ramsey is definitely somebody, that can shut people down. And, I mean, I was surprised that, it doesn't even look like he really played all that much. So I don't really know what the plan was with Jalen Ramsey, to be honest with you. I don't know if he was hurt or what have you. I mean, I showed here he played 50 snaps, but he only played 25 of those in coverage. So I think they tried to sell out to stop the run. And I don't really know. I mean, if that was your best plan of attack, I mean, I was a little shocked that, Staley didn't use him more, covering Samuel.
Yeah, I mean, I was confused by that as well because, Samuel seemed to be the receiver that was giving us the most trouble, and that's who you would imagine that Jalen Ramsey would be on. But again, that just goes to the play calling. It just felt like the play calling was weird. It felt like it was off. But like you said earlier, I mean, Kyle Shanahan outcoaches Sean McVay. He just
every
does
time.
every single time. And he finds new ways to do it. And, that just because you get out coached doesn't always mean that you're not going to win the game, but it certainly is a big factor. When you're getting out coached, you need the players to step up. And that was something that didn't happen on offense. We talked about on defense. I mean, Aaron Donald, got pissed. And when he got pissed, he stepped up. We had the Jordan Fuller interception. The whole game it was a super weird vibe. And I think it's frustrating because, as we talk about, it was a divisional game. And yes, the 49ers are last in the division. But when you look at the upcoming games that the Rams still have to play, we still have to play the Cardinals twice. And the Cardinals are a sleeper team. I know that they just lost, but they are a good team. And, I believe that the Rams are better. I think the Rams are better when we play to our full potential. But, I'm not going into a game next week and then a few weeks later again, the last game of the season against the Cardinals, completely confident that we're going to win. I mean, not really at all. I mean, I think we will win, and we'll talk about that more when we do our game preview. But the Cardinals aren't a team that we should take lightly at all. I mean, they're a very underrated team. We got to play the Patriots, and we got to play the Seahawks, and then we also have to play the Jets. But I can confidently say that I'm not worried about that game. But when I look at the rest of the teams that we play, listen, these are teams that we should beat, but not if we do anything remotely close to what we did yesterday against the 49ers. So I think what was frustrating about this game is the Rams really need to be winning all the games that they can, because you got the Seahawks who are playing as we speak against the Eagles, and they're probably going to win that game. So the Seahawks are now a game ahead of us in the NFC West. And the Seahawks, I think, are the team that we should be worried about. And they play the Giants and then the Jets and then Washington football team. So their schedule is pretty easy the rest of the year as well. So, it's just games that you should win and then lose are frustrating. It's like with Miami. But, there's nothing. I mean, I don't know if you have any final thoughts or anything else you want to bring up, but I just feel like it's frustrating as fans to watch your team when you know what your team is capable of, and instead you watch them go out there and it looks like they're confused the entire time.
Well, I mean, it absolutely is. And, the football's entertainment. I love football, but I got to say, this game, I wanted it to be over. I just wanted the Rams to win. 10-9, I think, was, close to the score of when it was. And I was like, I don't care about the style points. Just get the Rams the W and just get out of there, because I could already tell this was not going to be a good game. And no, I think Eric Williams said it best, with SI. He's been covering the Rams and he's been doing a good job. He had a really blunt title for his article, but it was very simple and straight to the point. Rams wasting Super Bowl caliber defense with turnover prone quarterback. And I know people are going to be upset. I understand that, I am not really allowed to say much negative about Jared Goff, but I mean, he's thrown 52 interceptions, fumbled 42 times. I mean, he's only gotten worse since 2018. And if you don't believe me, I literally have the stats here to prove it. If you go back, the first 27 games with Sean McVay, the Rams are not only 21-6. Jared Goff does not only have a 64.1 completion percentage, but he's thrown for 7,610 yards, 55 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, 104.8 passer rating, and 14 fumbles. So keep that in mind. And what that per 16 game average is, that would be 4,510 yards, 33 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 104.8 passer rating, and only 8 fumbles on that season. 12-3-1. Now, the last 35 games with McVay, he's 21-13, 63.2 completion percentage, 9,422 yards, 45 touchdowns, 34 interceptions, 85.6 passer rating, and 25 fumbles. What that averages out to be is 10-6, 4,318 yards, 21 touchdowns, 16 interceptions, 85.6 passer rating, and 12 fumbles. He's completely fallen off. And what the Rams did, as far as they even saw this, they saw the beginning of this fall off after the Kansas City Chiefs game. Because those first 27 games, the dividing line between that, Kansas City and Detroit game in 2018. So they saw this even going in the playoffs. And he didn't win a Super Bowl. And they paid him. While as, you have the Cowboys that didn't pay Dak Prescott. And I look at this and I think the Rams are stuck with him until 2023. And he's not getting better. He's in fact getting worse. He's regressing. He's going back, and I watched the film. He's going back to his old habits of throwing with an off base, not really much of a platform, just really poor mechanics. And he has a better offensive line than he did last year. So I don't know what the issue is. I really don't. I think part of it is, in a sense, Sean McVay is throwing a lot at him and ironically trying to help him out. And I think he is a slow mental processor that it's not helping him. But I think, if you're sitting there at home and you're saying, you can't be talking bad about Jared Goff. I mean, I hate to break it to you, but Jared Goff is the starting quarterback of a team that should be 9-2 or 10-1. And they would be if they had a game manager. Goff lost them the 49er game. Goff lost them the Miami game. And Goff lost them this 49er game. You could say the Buffalo game, he came back and he played strong. And Brandon Staley's defense was the opposite. But that's called an anomaly, folks. That happens. But it doesn't happen often. So essentially, this team has been held back by their quarterback. The stats prove it. The stats show it. When you have all the weapons in the world that you do have in Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Joshua Reynolds, Van Jefferson, Tyler Higbee, Gerald Everett, Cam Akers, Malcolm Brown, Darrell Henderson. I mean, you have all these weapons and you have this offensive line that, according to PFF, they've been top 10 all season long. It's on the quarterback. I mean, you can say that, obviously, I think that the play calling has been off. You and I have both been calling for Sean McVay to get rid, move the play calling over to O'Connell, but that doesn't change the fact that, when Sean McVay drew up the play on third down to Cooper Kupp, at least get that somewhere near him to draw that penalty. And that's the game right there. And that touchdown that he missed to Darrell Henderson. I hear a lot of Carson Wentz flack, but Carson Wentz hit that touchdown to Boston Scott to win the game against the Giants on primetime. So at the end of the day, I just feel like there's been a lot where, the Rams had ample opportunities. And I do think that while it is a team sport, of course, and you can't put an entire win on their back and you can't put an entire loss on their back. I've been seeing a lot of people say, well, Kurt Warner turned the ball over more and Kurt Warner didn't have as great of a win percentage in his first four, starting seasons either. Jared Goff does not hold a candle to Kurt Warner. We have to stop that right now. Jared Goff has had everything there for him. And I have no doubt he's probably going to go back to form like he was against Tampa. I think he'll probably, win the next 4 out of 6 games and play well. But you can't have these 4 out of 16 games on the schedule. You can't have 4 of them. Great quarterbacks don't have 4 bad games. They may have 1 a year. Jared Goff has at least 4 awful games, and this has to stop. And it's holding back, like Eric Williams said, a Super Bowl caliber defense.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there's a really big question mark around Goff right now, but at the same time, like you said, there's not really much we can do with him. We're paying him a lot of money. There's not much we can do other than potentially explore other options in the offseason, maybe bring in someone to compete, maybe draft somebody mid-round, late round. I don't want to say that it's time to give up on Goff, but I think it's time to put the pressure to him a little bit. And a lot of times when you put a pressure on quarterback, the quarterback is either going to be like, oh man, I need to get it together, and they're going to play well, or they're going to continue doing what they're doing, and then you see what you need to see. But we have to now win most of the games that we play the rest of the season, and we have to hope that other teams lose. And it's not a fun position to be in. I'm not that worried about it yet. I think that we really need to take Arizona seriously. We're going to talk more about that in the next episode. But for everyone who thinks that we're just going to run over Arizona, you are wrong. I do not think that will happen. But yeah, I mean, it's just a bummer, and I feel like people can probably hear it in our voice. Granted, we are both under the weather a little bit, so that also, I know I'm also like super monotone all the time apparently, and people think that, but I'm under the weather because of, poor life choices that I made today. Being outdoors, the 20 degrees for like hours on end.
Big yikes.
Yeah. Deeply disturbed individual here, but it was fun. But yeah, I think that's going to do it from us. We will be back. We will be back to preview the game against Arizona, which is in Arizona. So the Rams will be traveling, but not too far. And that will be out soon. But until then, as always, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. Please follow us on Twitter or Instagram at Downtown Rams. You can follow me on Twitter at the Alexis Craft. You can follow Jake at JK Bogan DTSN. But until next time, guys, stay safe and go Rams.